Today's gospel story is one of many healing stories in the Bible. It reminds us that Jesus' ministry is framed by healing, that his core work in the world, God's work in him and in all those who follow him, is the work of healing our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. And so whatever wounds you are bringing with you today to church, whatever way the world has harmed you, ostracized you, made you injured or upset, Christ's healing power is for you. Today's particular healing story has a second dimension to it that if we don't look carefully, it's easy to miss, but it's really important. The healing of the 10 lepers is, of course, a story about Jesus healing 10 people with leprosy. It's a pretty straightforward healing story. That part's not very mysterious. But there's a second healing that happens. The 10th leper, the one who turns back, is already healed from his infirmity, from his disease. He looks down and he sees that his skin has already become clear. And he turns back to Jesus and he says to him, "Thank you. Thank you." And then Jesus says to him, "Go on your way. Your faith has made you well." All 10 of the lepers were healed from their leprosy, but only the 10th has been made well. And Jesus isn't the one who makes the 10th well. He doesn't say, "I have made you well." He says, "Your faith has made you well." And every time I hear this story, I'm reminded of the value and the centrality to our faith of gratitude. A couple of years ago, I read a book on a train. It was a long train ride, called The Myth of Happiness. This book was written by an academic out on the West Coast, but it's for a popular audience. The central premise of the book is that we spend most of our lives trying to be happy. For most people, their number one wish for their children is that their children will grow up to be happy. And yet, happiness is so often elusive to us. We don't have it. We think we don't have it. And what the book suggests is that happiness as a goal, well, you'll never make it, because happiness is a feeling, and you can't create the feelings that you have. You may have tried. You may know people who try to make themselves happy all the time. Their eyes are always wide open and their smiles are just a little too broad, and they're always happy no matter what. I don't think that that's what God yearns for us. We can't make ourselves feel something that we're not feeling. What the author of this book suggests is that instead of trying to be happy all the time, instead of focusing on having the feelings we want to have, we focus on the practices that we can do in our lives that will eventually lead to the feelings we desire. And the number one practice that she observes that will help us find fulfillment and satisfaction in our lives is the practice of gratitude. The practice of gratitude, of being thankful. Most of us already practice gratitude in our lives. How many of you have said thank you to someone today? I have. Good, most of you, right? We say it all the time. That's a good start at building the practice of gratitude into your life. But of course, the gratitude that Christ longs for us to have is a much deeper gratitude than politeness or nicety. How many of you have ever said before a meal, "God, thank you for the blessings of this day. Thank you for the house that I have. Thank you for those gathered around this table. Thank you for the weather. Thank you for the gifts that are in my life." How many of you have ever thanked God in that way? Most of us, right? That's a good second level. But the gratitude I think that we're invited to, which is a lot more challenging, is to be grateful simply for our life. To be grateful not for the blessings of our life, not for the easy things that happen to us in our lives, not for what we have, but to be grateful simply for being alive. To be grateful for being part of this creation, this world, as messed up, as painful, as challenging, as wounding as it can be sometimes. Sometimes so wounding. The challenge of faith is to find a way to practice gratitude, even in those circumstances. To find a way to say to God, I don't understand. It hurts a lot. I'm so glad I'm here. Thank you. Thank you. Do you remember the first time you were ever grateful for just being alive? I do. I was 23. I was a late bloomer in this department. I was working for a summer in a hospital down in Boston, and I was a chaplain intern. I was called to my first death. My little buzzer went off, and I went up to the room, and there was an older person who had died, and I was asked to sit with his daughter, who was probably in her 50s or 60s. And she was very sad, but also very, very grateful for his life. She was laughing as she was crying, remembering the joy as she was feeling the pain and the sorrow of losing him. And I went home that night, and I remember thinking to myself, I've been missing it. I've been missing what it's all about. It's about being grateful for being here. No matter what happens to us in our lives, no matter who comes in and who comes out, no matter what things come in and what things go out, here we are. Thanks be to God. And I've tried to come back to that feeling when I've been most challenged in my life. Try to stay centered in that reality. Hopefully, many of you have some memory of feeling grateful, not for what you have, but simply for being. And I invite you to think about how you can call on that memory as a practice in times of deep challenge, when you don't feel like it, when you don't feel happy, when you feel dissatisfied or devastated. Call on that memory. Maybe it will lead you back to this practice of gratitude into which Christ and God invite every single one of us. It's, as you know, the high holy days for our Jewish brothers and sisters. They celebrated Rosh Hashanah last week, and Yom Kippur is coming up. We're in this in-between time. And I'll just end with the fact that my Jewish brothers and sisters, my friends, when I'm with them celebrating and we're toasting, it is the Jewish custom, instead of saying cheers or to your health, they say l'chaim, which means to life. L'chaim, to life. And every time I hear that, I'm reminded of the gift of life and of the gratitude which fills my heart, simply for being here, amidst whatever mess and chaos there is, for being here, being alive, here, right now. Thanks be to God.